Have you ever felt that your time is not your own? Many of us wake up with a plan, but by noon we are working on someone else's problems. We want to be helpful and kind, so we say yes to every request. However, this often leaves us feeling empty and exhausted at the end of the day. It is time to look at why we do this. Meet Sarah. She starts her morning at 6 o'clock, but she is already tired. Her desk is covered in small yellow papers with notes. Each note represents a task she promised to do for someone else. Sarah is a very kind person, and she wants everyone to be happy. However, her long to-do list is starting to feel like a heavy weight around her neck. The phone on her desk rings loudly. It is a friend from another department asking for a small favor. Sarah is already behind on her own work. She has a deadline in 2 hours and hasn't finished her coffee. Her stomach tightens as she listens to the request. She knows she should say no, but she feels a strange pressure to be helpful. Inside her head, Sarah is screaming, "No!" She can see her own work waiting for her. She knows she will have to stay late if she helps her friend. But when she opens her mouth, the word yes comes out instead. It happens almost automatically, like a reflex. She hangs up the phone and feels a deep sense of regret immediately after the conversation ends. Sarah is what we call a people pleaser. This is a person who cares more about the feelings of others than their own needs. In simple terms, they find it very hard to disagree or say no. They believe that being nice means always saying yes. But this behavior has a high price. It creates a life where you are the last person on your own list. Where are you listening from today? It is wonderful to share these stories with people from all over the world. Please tell us your location in the comments below. If you enjoy stories about real life and personal growth, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share these important lessons with others. Now, let us return to Sarah and her heavy burden of tasks. This constant need to please others has a physical cost. Sarah feels a dull headache every afternoon. Her chest often feels heavy, as if she is holding her breath. This is the physical feeling of stress. When we ignore our own boundaries, our bodies start to send us signals. Sarah is beginning to realize that her body is telling her something is very wrong with her lifestyle. Last night, Sarah stayed at the office until 8 o'clock. She wasn't working on her own projects. She was finishing a presentation for a colleague who wanted to leave early. The office was quiet and dark, except for the light from her computer. She felt lonely and frustrated. This was the 3rd time this month she had sacrificed her own evening to help someone else avoid work. In her mind, Sarah thinks she is being a good person. She believes that being helpful is the most important quality. But there is a difference between being helpful and being used. She is actually becoming more tired and less effective. By saying yes to everyone else, she is actually saying no to her own health and happiness. She is confusing being nice with being exhausted. Why do we do this to ourselves? Is it because we want to be loved? Or is it because we are afraid of what people will think? We often worry that if we say no, people will think we are mean or selfish. We forget that we are also people who deserve care. We spend all our energy lighting other people's lamps, while our own house sits in total darkness. Life should not feel like a heavy weight every single day. Work and relationships are meant to be a balance of giving and receiving. If you are always giving and never protecting your time, you will eventually have nothing left to offer. Sarah is reaching that point. She is realizing that the way she is living is not sustainable. A change is coming, and it starts with a realization. Every story has a moment where things must change. For Sarah, the pressure was building like steam in a pot. She could not continue to carry everyone's responsibilities on her shoulders. She needed to find a way to set limits. She needed to understand that her time was valuable. The stage was set for a major shift in her perspective. She was about to discover the hidden power of a single word. Why is it so difficult to say that tiny word? No is only 2 letters, but it feels as heavy as a mountain. To understand this, we must look at our history. Long ago, humans did not live in large cities with millions of people. We lived in small groups called tribes. In those times, your survival depended entirely on the people around you. You needed the group to stay safe. In a small tribe, being liked was not just about being popular. It was about staying alive. If the tribe did not like you, they might kick you out. Being alone in the wild meant you would not survive for long. This created a deep instinct in our brains. We learned to fear any behavior that might make other people angry or disappointed with us. We became experts at social harmony. This ancient survival instinct is still inside us today. When you think about saying no to a colleague, your brain reacts as if you are in danger. Even though you are safe in a modern office, your old brain thinks you are being kicked out of the tribe. It sends signals of fear and anxiety. This is why your heart beats faster when you want to decline a simple request. Our brains are wired to keep us safe, not necessarily to keep us happy. To your brain, saying no feels like a risk to your security. It worries that you will be rejected. So, it pushes you to say yes to keep the peace. Understanding this biology is the first step. It helps us realize that the fear we feel is just an old habit from our ancestors. Society also teaches us to be polite from a very young age. We are told to share our toys, to be helpful, and to never be difficult. We are rewarded when we agree and punished when we argue. For many people, this means they grow up believing that their own opinions are less important than the harmony of the room. We learn to value politeness over our own truth. Think about the reactions you see every day. A yes usually makes people smile and say thank you. It feels good to receive that immediate positive feedback. On the other hand, a no might make someone frown or look frustrated. We are sensitive to these expressions. Most of us will do almost anything to avoid a frown, even if it means working through our own lunch break. Sarah remembers being a little girl and hearing people call her a good girl whenever she helped. She learned that helping meant she was valuable. She thought that if she stopped helping, she would lose her value. This belief followed her into adulthood and into her career. She became the person everyone could count on, but she lost herself in the process of being good for everyone else. The emotional takeaway is clear. We are programmed to choose other people's comfort over our own. We spend our lives trying to prevent other people from feeling disappointed. But here is the truth. You are not responsible for how other people feel when you set a boundary. You are only responsible for your own health and your own time. Choosing yourself is not a crime, even if it feels like one. However, the modern world is very different from the ancient world of our ancestors. We are no longer living in a small tribe of 20 people. We are connected to thousands of people through technology. Requests come from everywhere. We get emails, text messages, and phone calls at all hours. Our ancient brains are being overwhelmed by the sheer number of demands on our time and energy. In the past, you might have helped one person with a task once a week. Now, you might receive 10 requests in a single morning. If you use your old, always say yes strategy in the modern world, you will quickly run out of energy. The world has changed, but our instincts have not. We must learn a new way to survive in this busy, connected environment without burning out. There is a concept called the cost of yes. Every time you say yes to something, you are automatically saying no to something else. If you say yes to a late meeting, you are saying no to dinner with your family. If you say yes to a new project, you are saying no to sleep. We only have a limited amount of time. You must decide what is worth your yes. The logic is simple. You only have 24 hours in a day. You are not a machine that can run forever without fuel. You need rest, food, and time to think. When you try to do everything for everyone, the quality of your work and your life goes down. You become a shadow of yourself. You are present in body, but your spirit is completely exhausted and drained. Do you feel like you are running out of time for yourself? Many people feel this way every day. They feel like they are on a treadmill that is moving too fast. They are afraid to step off because they don't want to let anyone down. But if you don't step off, you will eventually fall. It is time to pause and consider a different way to live and work. Let us go back to Sarah's story. It was a cold Tuesday evening in November. The rain was hitting the office windows with a steady sound. Sarah sat at her desk, staring at a blank computer screen. She had been at work for 10 hours already. She felt a deep, heavy tiredness in her bones. This was the kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot fix easily. Tonight was a very special night. It was her daughter's first school play. Sarah had promised to be there in the front row. Her daughter had been practicing her lines for weeks. Sarah could still see the excited look on the little girl's face that morning.
"You'll be there, right, Mummy?"
she had asked. Sarah had smiled and promised she would be there early. Just as Sarah was packing her bag to leave, her boss walked into her office. He looked stressed and held a thick folder of papers. He explained that he needed a new report finished by tomorrow morning. He said it was very important for a meeting. The report wasn't actually urgent, but the boss was worried and wanted it done immediately to feel better about his own schedule. Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. She looked at the clock. If she started the report now, she would miss the play. She wanted to say, "I have a family commitment tonight." But the old fear of disappointing her boss rose up. She didn't want him to think she wasn't a hard worker. She looked down at her desk and said, "Yes, I will do it tonight." The boss thanked her and left the room. Sarah was now alone in the dark office. She opened the folder and began to type. The office building became very quiet as the other employees went home. Sarah's fingers moved across the keyboard, but her mind was at the school theatre. She could imagine the music starting and the curtain rising without her in the audience. As she worked, a new feeling started to grow inside her. It was not just sadness, it was bitterness. She felt angry at her boss for asking her so late. She felt angry at the company for having so much work. She even felt angry at the computer screen. This bitterness is what happens when we say yes, but our hearts mean no. It poisons our feelings toward others. Then, she had a sudden thought. Her boss didn't force her to stay. He had simply asked a question. She was the one who said yes. The anger she felt toward her boss was actually anger at herself. She realized that she was the one who had traded her daughter's happiness for a report that could have waited. She was the one who had failed to protect her own life. By the time Sarah finished the report, it was 9 o'clock. She rushed to her car and drove to the school as fast as she could. When she arrived, the parking lot was almost empty. She ran to the doors, but they were locked. The lights in the auditorium were off. The play was over. She had missed the entire performance. The silence of the empty school was deafening. When she got home, her daughter was already in bed. Her husband looked at Sarah with a sad, disappointed expression. He didn't yell, which almost made it feel worse. He told her that their daughter had looked for her in the crowd during the whole play. Sarah felt a sharp pain in her heart. She realized that her yeses at work was a no to the people she loved most. Sarah went into the kitchen and sat down in the dark. She began to cry quietly. She felt like she was failing at everything. She was working too much, yet she didn't feel successful. She was trying to be a good mother, yet she was never there. She was at her rock bottom. This was the moment where she realized that her current way of living was completely broken. She asked herself a very important question. Was she being nice by staying late? Or was she just being absent from her own life? We often think that our sacrifices make us better people. But if those sacrifices hurt our families and our health, are they really good? Sarah saw that her people-pleasing was actually a form of selfishness because it made her unavailable to her family. This is what we call burnout. It is like a candle that has burned all its wax and has no more fuel for the flame. You cannot give light if you are empty. Sarah had been giving and giving until there was nothing left of her personality or her joy. She was just a machine that said yes. She realized she had to stop the fire from going out completely. She thought about all the things she had stopped doing. She used to love painting. She used to enjoy long walks. Now, her life was only work and sleep. She was doing everyone else's hobbies and everyone else's projects. but her own dreams were buried under a pile of reports. She was a supporting character in everyone else's movie, but she was not the star of her own. That night, as she sat in her quiet kitchen, Sarah made a decision. She decided that she could not live like this for one more day. She did not want to miss any more plays or any more dinners. She realized that she had a choice. It was a scary choice, but it was necessary. She had to learn how to use the word she feared the most. The shift in her mind was powerful. She finally understood that no was not a bad word. It was not a weapon to hurt people. Instead, it was a tool for survival. It was a way to say, I value my life. She realized that if she didn't set limits, the world would continue to take everything she had. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, she would start to build a fence. The next morning, the sun came up, and Sarah felt different. She didn't feel the usual heavy anxiety. Instead, she felt a quiet strength. She had spent the night thinking about how to change. She began to look for a better way to handle the demands of her life. She was looking for a balance between being a helpful person and being a healthy person. She discovered a concept called boundaries. In simple English, a boundary is a limit. It is a line that shows where you stop and where the other person begins. It is like a fence around a house. It tells people what is okay and what is not okay. Without boundaries, people don't know when they are taking too much from you. They assume you are always available. Think of your life like a beautiful garden. A garden needs a fence. If there is no fence, the neighbor's goats will come in and eat your flowers. They don't do it to be mean. They do it because they are hungry and the flowers are there. Boundaries are the fence for your soul. They protect your energy, your time, and your happiness from being eaten by the world. This mindset shift was huge for Sarah. She realized that saying no was not about being rude to others. It was about being kind to herself. By protecting her garden, she would eventually have more flowers to share with the people who truly mattered. If she let her garden be destroyed, she would have nothing to give to anyone. Setting a boundary is actually an act of love. She also realized something very deep. Saying yes when you want to say no is actually a lie. When Sarah said she would do the report, she was not being honest about her capacity or her feelings. She was pretending to be okay when she was not. This dishonesty creates a distance between people. True relationships are built on honesty, and honesty sometimes requires us to say no. People cannot trust your yeses if you never have the strength to say no. If you always agree, your agreement has no value. It is just a habit. But if you sometimes say no, then when you say yes, people know you truly mean it. They know you are giving your time because you want to, not because you are afraid. Boundaries actually make our relationships stronger and more authentic. Sarah decided to start with something small. She didn't want to change everything in one day. That afternoon, her neighbor knocked on her door. The neighbor wanted Sarah to help her move some furniture. Usually, Sarah would drop everything to help, even if she was busy. But today, she had planned to spend time playing with her daughter to make up for the missed play. Sarah took a deep breath. She looked her neighbor in the eye and used a simple phrase. She said, "I would love to help you another time, but I'm resting and spending time with my family today." Her heart was beating fast, and she felt a little bit dizzy. It was the first time she had ever said something like that. She waited for the neighbor to get angry. Immediately, Sarah felt a giant wave of guilt. She thought, "Oh no, she thinks I'm lazy. She will never talk to me again." This is the guilt waves that every people pleaser feels the first time they set a boundary. It feels like you have committed a crime. You want to take back the words and say, "Wait, I changed my mind. I'll help you." But she remembered what she had learned. The guilt wave is like a wave in the ocean. It is very tall and scary when it comes toward you, but if you stand your ground, it eventually breaks and disappears. You just have to wait for the water to become calm again. The guilt is not a sign that you did something wrong. It is just a sign that you are doing something new. To Sarah's complete surprise, the neighbor didn't look angry at all. She just smiled and said, Oh, I completely understand. Enjoy your family time. I'll ask someone else. The neighbor didn't walk away, upset. She didn't stop being Sarah's friend. She simply accepted the answer and moved on with her day. The disaster that Sarah had imagined in her head did not happen. Sarah stood in her doorway, feeling shocked. The world did not end. Her neighbor did not leave her. She felt a sudden sense of relief and freedom. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She realized that most people are actually very reasonable. They only take because we let them. When we set a limit, they often respect it without any problem. This was a major lesson. Most people respect boundaries more than they respect yes men. When you respect your own time, others begin to respect it too. They see that you are a person with priorities. Sarah felt a new sense of self-respect. She went back inside and played a board game with her daughter. She was present, she was happy, and she was not thinking about furniture. Sarah started practicing her no, like she was learning a new language. Each day, she tried to find one small place where she could set a boundary. She realized that she didn't have to be loud or mean about it. She could be kind and firm at the same time. The more she practiced, the easier it became. Her no muscles were getting stronger every single day. You can start small, too. You don't have to change your entire life today. Maybe you can say no to a phone call when you're eating dinner. Or maybe you can decline an invitation to an event you don't really want to attend. Small boundaries lead to big changes. Every time you say no to something that doesn't matter, you are saying yes to your own peace of mind. Now, let us look at some practical ways to use this power. Saying no can be difficult because we don't always have the right words. When we are nervous, we often say yes because we can't think of a polite way to say no. It helps to have a few simple scripts ready in your mind. These phrases can help you protect your time without feeling like a bad person. The first helpful phrase is, "Let me check my calendar and get back to you." This is a very professional and polite way to respond to any request. You are not saying no immediately, and you are not saying yes. You are giving yourself space to think. This is especially useful for people who have a reflex to say yes the moment someone asks them for a favor. This phrase works because it stops the yeses reflex. When you are under pressure, your brain can't make a good decision. By waiting 10 minutes or an hour, you can look at your to-do list and decide if you actually have the energy to help. It allows you to make a choice based on logic rather than fear. It puts you back in control of your schedule. The second phrase is the positive alternative. You can say, "I can't do X, but I can do Y." For example, if a colleague asks you to write a whole report, you can say, "I can't write the whole report, but I can check your final draft for 10 minutes. This shows that you are still a team player, but you are not sacrificing your entire day for their work. The third phrase is, "I am not the best person for this." Sometimes we say yes because we feel responsible for everything. But often, there is someone else who can do the task better or faster. By saying no, you allow the other person to find the right help. You are not being lazy, you are being honest about your skills and your current workload. It is okay to not be the hero. There is a very important rule to remember. You do not always need to give a long excuse. When we feel guilty, we often tell a long story about why we can't help. We talk about our sick dog, our busy morning, and our tired eyes. But giving too many excuses actually makes your boundary look weak. It sounds like you are asking for permission to say no. In many cases, no is a complete sentence. You can simply say, "I'm sorry, I can't do that right now." You don't need to explain your whole life. People who respect you will accept a simple answer. You are an adult, and you have the right to manage your time. You don't have to prove that you are busy enough to deserve a break. Your time is yours. Another great tool is the 24-hour rule. For any big request that requires a lot of time or energy, tell the person you will give them an answer in 24 hours. This prevents you from making emotional decisions. During those 24 hours, the pressure of the moment disappears. You can see clearly if the request fits into your life or if it will cause you too much stress. Boundaries also help you focus on deep work. This is the kind of work that requires your full attention. When you say no to small distractions and constant meetings, you can actually finish your important tasks much faster. Productivity is not about how many things you do, it is about how well you do the things that matter. Saying no to the small things allows you to say yes to the big things. Sarah started using these tools at the office. She began blocking her calendar for 2 hours every morning. She called it her quiet time. During these 2 hours, she did not answer the phone or check her email. She told her colleagues, "I am unavailable from 9 to 11 so I can focus on our main project." At first, she was nervous, but she stayed firm. The results were amazing. Because she was not being interrupted every 5 minutes, she finished her work much earlier. She was no longer staying until 8 o'clock at night. She was leaving the office on time at 5 o'clock. She realized that her yeses to everyone else was actually making her slower at her own job. By setting a boundary, she became a better and more efficient employee. The emotional takeaway here is powerful. Productivity is not about doing everything, it is about doing the right things. When you protect your time, you feel more confident. You stop feeling like a victim of your schedule and start feeling like the boss of your life. This change in energy is visible to everyone around you. You start to carry yourself with more authority and peace. Ask yourself this: what is the one thing you would do if you had 2 extra hours today? Would you read a book? Would you go for a run? Or would you simply sit in silence and enjoy a cup of tea? Those 2 hours belong to you. They are currently being stolen by small requests that don't matter. You have the power to take them back, starting today. Let's fast forward 6 months into the future. Sarah looks like a different person. The dark circles under her eyes are gone. She smiles more often, and her voice sounds more relaxed. She still works hard, and she is still a kind person. But she is no longer a yes person. She has learned to balance her kindness with a strong sense of self-protection. Her life has been transformed. Her relationships have also changed for the better. Her friends and colleagues now know that when Sarah says yes, she really means it. They know she is not saying it out of fear or guilt. This has created a deeper level of trust. People don't take advantage of her anymore because they know she has limits. Paradoxically, by saying no more often, her relationships have become much more honest. At home, the atmosphere is bright and happy. Sarah is present for her family. When she is at dinner, she is actually listening to her husband. When she is with her daughter, she isn't checking her work phone every 2 minutes. She has reclaimed her evenings and her weekends. She is no longer just a working machine. She is a wife and a mother who is truly there. The power of no gave Sarah her life back. It allowed her to stop running and start living. She realized that the world didn't fall apart when she set boundaries. In fact, her world became much more stable and beautiful. She found that people didn't want a perfect person who did everything. They wanted a healthy person who was happy and reliable. Sarah even started that painting class she had ignored for years. Every Saturday morning, she spends 3 hours with her brushes and colors. This was a time she used to spend doing extra laundry or catching up on emails. Now, those 3 hours are sacred. They are her yeses to her own soul. Painting makes her feel alive and creative, and that energy carries into her whole week. She finally feels like the main character of her own story again. For a long time, she was just an assistant in everyone else's lives. Now, she makes the decisions. She chooses where her energy goes. She knows that her time is a precious gift, and she is careful about who she gives it to. This is the definition of freedom. It is the ability to say, "This is my life." This journey is possible for everyone listening. You might feel like Sarah did at the beginning, overwhelmed, tired, and afraid to say no. But you can also reach the place where Sarah is now. It starts with one small boundary and one small moment of courage. You have the right to be happy. You have the right to rest. You have the right to say no. Today we have talked about many things. We looked at the trap of people-pleasing and how it drains our energy. We explored the history of our fear and why our brains find it so hard to be disagreeable. Finally, we saw the beauty of boundaries through Sarah's journey. It is a path from exhaustion to empowerment. It is a path that you can begin to walk right now. Remember that your time is your most valuable currency. Once you spend it, you can never get it back. Don't spend all of it on tasks and people that don't truly matter to you. Be generous with your heart, but be protective of your hours. By setting limits, you are not being a bad person. You are being a responsible steward of the life you were given. By listening to this story today, you have done something great for yourself. You have taken a moment to reflect on your own habits and your own mindset. Growth happens when we stop to listen and learn. Every story we hear helps us understand ourselves a little bit better. You are already making progress by thinking about these concepts and how they apply to your own daily life. My challenge for you this week is simple. Try saying one small no. Find a request that you usually say yes to, but that you don't actually want to do. Use one of our polite phrases and see how it feels. Notice the guilt wave and then watch it disappear. See what happens when you protect your own time. You might be surprised at how much respect you gain. Thank you for spending this time with me. It is a privilege to share these stories and ideas with you. I hope you feel more empowered and ready to face your week with a new perspective. Your life is a garden, so remember to take care of the fence. I look forward to our next story together. Until then, take a deep breath and find your own quiet strength.